gonna toss it to you, now I end up throwing that to you. Oh, I usually give somebody a reason by 6 o'clock in the morning to throw stuff at them. If not, they haven't seen my Facebook page. Yeah, words for you, man. Are we on?
I'm not sure.
I just watched one of our videos the other day, and they start recording before we ever get in here. So there's interesting conversations going on.
Yeah, I
Really?
try not to do that. I don't.
I think there should be a start button.
That's why this is here.
These weren't even on. You can hear it pretty good just from.
That market just came by.
I think he was gonna skip the meeting today.
Yeah.
Brian, how are you? Wow. It's a room full.
Another table.
You don't think? This is what I expected.
Got rid of it.
Not as crowded as I thought it'd be.
And then if you want to borrow it, I can take it all.
When you walk in here, now you
My mother gave it to me, God love it.
I thought it'd be more down there.
Take those tables. Those tables there.
Yeah, I got this too. Only $75 a ticket.
8 to 7.
Well, we get to go for free, so the system just doesn't have it. I don't understand why I can't get it to work. What is that?
I gotta watch this video in order to record you guys.
16 minutes.
Your agenda's not coming up yet either.
I finally got it up. Michelle, whenever you're ready to something, okay?
Well, I'm trying to bring this up.
I'm enjoying the music though. I mean, it's great. What do you need? Jeff, what's going on with the Royals? Did they? Yeah. Houston's good for whatever ails anybody, isn't it? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Interesting. We're having technical difficulties, folks.
Thought it'd be better if they had the laptop over here instead of over there, so I can, and then I can see if
Oh, that's
it's
good.
live versus having.
What are they doing? Is it like a demo tape that it's running?
Yes.
Can you not X out of that?
Nope. But usually it doesn't work.
You just skip it. Motion to adjourn. Oh,
We haven't gone into session yet. You know, your motion is not well taken.
It shouldn't have. Here we go.
The anticipation is worse than
I'm sorry.
I think I got one of the accounts payable too.
I didn't see one.
I think it's approved. Did you stand on one foot and hop, pat your head?
So are we up? Are we running?
This thing is stuck. We've got runtime there.
No, I'm only gonna wait. Not gonna wait forever. Naturally, this will be the meeting that the streaming doesn't work. Perfect timing.
And Ben's not here, so I'm like, really?
Never fails, does it?
You get Dale or,
Same.
No, Dawn says it's working.
It's working?
That's what she said.
All right. We're gonna run with it. Don't touch nothing.
I can't see that it's working, but.
All right, we'll call the commission to order. Do we have any minutes or reports, Michelle?
No.
All right. Commissioner committee liaison reports or announcements of upcoming meetings and/or events.
Campo Day. You wanna go with that one? Do you miss that one yet?
I never missed that one in the first place.
I'm not.
I'm making the presentation to the Rotary Club on Monday about county commission, what we're doing. I think that's about it. Anything?
Chamber Connections tomorrow.
fish fries on Friday out at Public Works.
Sportsman's Club annual meeting is Thursday night.
Forgot about the fish fry.
Yeah, I didn't have that on my calendar.
You'd
I
have
didn't
missed
even get
out.
invited to it.
I didn't think I did get invited to
We
it.
just got asked to
Pay for it.
the fish.
All right. First item on the agenda. Since we have a fairly large contingent here in the crowd, I think we might be better off taking public comment first as opposed to having Kerry do his presentation. What do you guys think? I will defer to everyone in the room. Democracy at its finest. Would you prefer to wait and hear Kerry's presentation and then have comment, or would you prefer to speak now? And Terry, you're on the agenda, but we can put you wherever you'd like.
Okay.
All right. Then first item on the agenda is facilities master plan. Kerry, thanks for coming and putting up with our unique form of government we have. I will turn the floor over to you and let you run with it. Thank you. Oh, and if you'd pull a microphone close so that folks out there in TV land can hear what you're saying.
Watch out, Bill. I'm gonna get Edie too.
You guys can sit at the table up here too. Don't be shy. Nice comfy seats.
All right, Kerry.
Okay,
Go.
thank you. Have two options to show to you today, primarily renovation and new construction. With me is Sarah Campbell and Larry Brandhorst. From our last, I'll flip through these couple photographs of, this is from Capitol and this is from Adams. Next slide. What's next? From our last meeting, we talked about kind of what the design goals were for this project. We call that program information. It defines what we're trying to achieve. This is a courtroom that, without paying attention to the existing dimensions of the building, this is 100 seats, jury of 12 to 14, room for the judge, and 3 other chairs up here, ADA accessibility. And that shows a 53 by 56 foot dimension. And I know that some of this is flexible. We would have to get into the details of the bench, get into the details of the well and the details of the gallery, but the big items are there: the bench, the well, the gallery. We know there's some things that support a courtroom, whether it be deliberation or meeting type rooms, conference rooms for each party to retire to and meet. We know there's judges' chambers and a couple offices associated with that, and a workroom, some restrooms. A lot of this is considered back of house type stuff in secure areas, not necessarily public areas. The public is more here in the gallery. So these items, again, there's some flexibility to that. The judges have mentioned that before, but these are the big ticket items. Some of them can be accomplished in the existing courthouse some would be part of this project. And I know that some of these already exist in the courthouse. But again, this is kind of the overriding program information, and the reason we did this was to see kind of how big this thing would typically be, and it's about 3,000 square feet. Next, this is a slide of the existing courthouse. This is the jail, and this is the sheriff's residence. And these are all the same scale. So that program information you just looked at is here. And we're comparing that to what today we call the large courtroom is here. So this is about 1,300 square feet. But again, we're not talking about just a courtroom. We're talking about some of these ancillary support spaces, judges' chambers, small offices, things like that. So this would be design information or program information. This would be existing conditions that we're comparing to today. And then this is the jail and sheriff's residence that we're talking about. We have this sheet that you can get a lot of information on, but basically it's the jail, first floor, second floor, third floor, and a building section. We didn't show the Sallyport because it's common on both projects, but under this would also be the Sallyport level or the alley level. Next slide. So this is the north end of the courthouse right here. You see the two elevators there. This is the footprint of the jail right here. This is the footprint of the sheriff's residence. So on the jail first floor, which is basically the lawn out front, you would have an entryway into a secure lobby, metal detector, security office, or whatever those personnel need. And when you enter this building, you're a half a floor off from the courthouse. So we have a half a flight of steps up and into the courthouse. We also have a chairlift right there for ADA accessibility to come in, go through security, chairlift up, half a floor up, and you're into the courthouse. There's some unassigned space here. Could be multipurpose, could be deliberation, could be offices. Also, there's an existing stair in the jail that goes between the various levels of the jail. That we would suggest securing and let that be how judges and staff circulate behind the secure envelope. There's restroom here for security staff to not have to go far, but basically this is a secure vertical circulation stair for judges or attorneys, whoever they allow back there. Likewise, this area could be part of that secure envelope, but we didn't really see a need for it on this floor. Probably come from the courthouse down a half a flight of stairs and into some office space or something like that. But the key is you have 1,300 square foot there to assign. Next. One floor up in the sheriff's residence would be the judge's office, two support offices, a little work area. Again, access to that secure stair. So this is backstage, if you will, and available to the folks running the courts. Also on this floor would be another 1,300 square feet of multipurpose space, a half a flight up from the courthouse, the nearest courthouse floor. Again, some restrooms. Here's a restroom behind the secure envelope for the judges, restroom here, and then you could also have restrooms associated with whatever staff or use you put there. The next floor up would be the third floor, which does align with the courthouse. And again, you see that the judges would have come up this stair. Ideally, the judges' chambers would be on the courthouse level, but it's not always, particularly in a historic building. So in this instance, the judges would access this stair and come into the courtroom through that door. The public would come in from the courthouse on the third floor and into the courtroom. There's also a need for a stair to get the public out of this end of the building. This is a very long dead-end corridor, so code-wise we need a stair here for the public as well. I question whether we can get a rated secure enclosure there. But anyway, we've shown a stair. We probably work with the county's code officials and get some sprinklers in there or something like that to counteract, to beef up the egress rating of that. I know that there's been some compromises, and we haven't talked about this in detail with the judges, but we've to fit in this envelope, we've cut back the seating to about 50. We do have the 2 tables there for attorneys. That's an improvement from the current courtroom. But we really don't have any improvement here as far as the space for judges and reporters and jury. But we do have ADA accessibility. Some of that routing is shared with the judge's routing. Typically, you like the judge to enter that bench without anybody else crossing their path. So anyway, that is fitting the courtroom on the top floor that's online with the 3rd floor of the courthouse. Next. This is a section through the building. From here to the left is courthouse. From here to the right is jail and sheriff's residence. So again, there's that courtroom on the 3rd floor of the courthouse. The roof is very low, and it's designed as a roof, not a floor. So we question whether we're able to put mechanical units on that load. Plus, so we recommend a new roof and line that roof up with the 4th floor, and you could build that. That could be a future floor if you decided to expand vertically. You would simply raise these screens up. These are screens to hide the mechanical equipment. They would look like the courthouse roof, but you would get airflow around the mechanical units. So you have roof level and mechanical equipment, courtroom on the 3rd floor. This interim level would have the judge's chamber and multipurpose room. Down a half level from the courthouse, 2nd floor would be the secure entrance and office area to the west, and then of course the vehicular sally port and inmate holding down here. So these would be portions of the floor would be removed and build these new stairs for the public to get access from the courthouse from here down to that level, or from here down to that level and up to that level. So this is public, and it's getting, again, these floors tied in with the courthouse. The vertical circulation for the judges or behind the secure envelope would be this stair. That's already there today in the jail. It's not pretty, but it is there. Next. So again, this goes back to the footprint of the courthouse, the existing large courtroom, the program information, and then what we're seeing in the footprint of the jail on the 3rd floor.
Is that all to scale? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're all relevant to each other. And then it goes back to, this is the summary page with, again, jail, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and a section floor. Okay, next, new construction. Again, this is a summary page, but now instead of jail and sheriff's residence floors, they're courthouse floors. So this would be courthouse, that's actually should say courthouse 2nd, courthouse 3rd, courthouse 4th, and a building section. Next. So this would be, again, the lawn out in front of the courthouse, in secure entrance, metal detectors, but it would be on level with the courthouse. So left to be assigned is this 1,675 square feet. Could be offices, could be a secure area. Over here, another 840 square feet of unassigned area. Also online with this corridor would be additional restrooms. You could have more fixtures in here at the cost of some of this usable space here. There is a stair here that could be used as egress to vacate this end of the courthouse. It would go down all the way to the alley level and out in an emergency. You could also use it, depending on how the security staff controls the building, they could also let the back side of that be used for vertical circulation for judges. The way the topography works with the west side of the courthouse, this is Monroe Street, and it's sloping down. So you could pick up another 750 or so square feet under this floor plate, which is adjacent to the existing sally port. Remember, there's a basement to the sheriff's residence, which is the vehicular sally port here. There's a basement to the jail, which is the inmate holding here. There is space there. You could get one more floor, which would be a walkout on Monroe or walkout on the alley if you wanted to do that. Next floor. The next floor up is, again, remember, we're limited by the courthouse is here and it's not flexible. The alley's here and it's not flexible. So we're limited in this dimension here, which is 42 feet. So working with that dimension, this is what we could fit in there. We do have 100 seats shown. We do have 2 tables. We do have the judge and 3 other positions up here. But again, we would have to work out the details and see if this is the dimension everybody wants, see if this is all the right dimension, but we think we have the pieces and parts in there. Judges could enter again from this secure stair into their bench. This area could be, again, back of house, which would be judges' chambers, work area, offices. So this whole floor could be back of house, accessed by that stair, while the public would come from this direction and in one of these doors into the courtroom and have access to these restrooms. If we could go backwards one, I forgot an item. If you use this secure stair, let's say for jury deliberation, they could come down this stair and into this space. This would be just open meeting type space. These doors could be locked, and these doors could be opened up and dedicated to jury deliberation. Back up. Yeah, let's go to the next one. Oh, go back. I'm sorry, one. So again, remember those dimensions we had at the beginning in program information. Now this is 56 by 42. We'll go back and compare that to the program information. Okay, next. This could be a 4th floor. It could be, we could make accommodations that it could happen in the future. In other words, how we engineer the roof to be a floor in the future. You could build it now as a shell and finish it later, or you could build it all now. We've not assumed this as part of the project for right now, but you can see coming from the 4th floor of the courthouse, you would have public restrooms, egress stair, and 2,160 and 840, about 3,000 square feet of unassigned area on that floor. Next. This is a section. I should have mentioned before, the red is new construction. Before, the red was just up here. It was this roof and this screens for mechanical equipment. But again, that right there is the lid of the sally port. Okay, so to get the floors to align, we would put structure in here. We would switch from masonry to steel structure to lighten it up because we have existing footings in place. This would align. And the 2nd floor, that would align. So again, you'd have a roof level with the mechanical equipment, but this could be a future floor if you directed us to design it that way. Courtroom and judges' chambers on one floor here with public restrooms. Secure entrance, office area, deliberation, other public restrooms down here. So these floors line up. We don't have the opening in the floor and the interim stairs here. And this would be a vertical new stairwell going all the way through that the public would typically exit out onto the secure lobby area, but you could also egress out onto the alley area. Next. So again, going back to the program, the existing, what we call the large courtroom in the courthouse, and then what this sketch shows. And again, we have not reviewed this in detail with judges, so we have to check and see if we have all that right, but it appears we have all the pieces and parts, the 100 seats, the 2 benches, and the bench up here. And this is, again, just a review of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and section. In summary, this is a sheet of the large courtroom in the courthouse, program information, courtroom, 50-seat approximate courtroom achieved in renovation, and 100 seat approximate courtroom achieved in new construction. Next. We can change topics for a second and talk about budgets. Just put this in here as typical courthouse construction costs, so you can see substructure, building frame, exterior envelope, roofing, interiors, plumbing, HVAC, fire protection, and electrical. That's just a very general boilerplate, how the budget's broken down. So new construction, here's the word new construction, it would have items in all these categories. Renovation would have the bottom items, but not the top items. And the reason the line is dashed, it's a little fuzzy here where the renovation costs stop. The reason for that is depending on the design you choose, we could be having to go in and modify the substructure, although we're trying to avoid that. You could have to go in and modify the building frame depending on floors you're taking out, things like that. The exterior envelope, there would be, in a renovation, there would be some money in exterior envelope, be it for windows or tuck pointing or sealing the masonry, things like that. But again, here's renovation versus here's new construction. Next. And we have a summary page of this at the end, I'll show you, but this just shows how we went about looking at every floor, the ground floor, how much is available on each floor, and the different types of construction costs. So you can see we don't have money in here for any work in the Sallyport or inmate holding at this time. I know that's been talked about, but we do have money for a secure vestibule off the alley, mechanical retrofit, and facade cleaning and coating. And we have that on both levels, or every level gets exterior windows and masonry tuck pointing. You can see that at the bottom of each of these. Otherwise, it's renovation costs based on the previous slide I showed you. So the total of that is $1,842,000 for renovation. Next. New construction, we have basically the same on the ground level. We have nothing for inmate holding and Sallyport, but we do have some facade coating. We also added to this one, remember there was 700 or so square feet picked up on the alley level of potential office or expansion of Sallyport, whatever you wanted. And probably if you do that, you'd put a restroom down there. So we did add dollars in for that. And then the second floor and third floor are pretty straightforward with the square footage and the cost per square foot for office space versus courtroom space. And that's about $2,049,000. This one also has the option, remember it's not in this number, but it has the option of that fourth floor if you decide to, and you'd have this much construction, 4,100. Not all that's usable, some of that's stairs and restrooms, but there's some rough dollar amounts if you wanted to add a floor in the future in today's dollars. Next. This is a summary trying to look at all the amenities between the two options. Renovation, we have ground floor, first floor, second, and third. The first category is courts. So you can see we have 750 square feet, that was the judge's chambers, offices, work area, 1,300 square feet of courtroom space for a total of 2,050 square feet of courtroom in the renovation. If you skip down here, new construction, and look at these three floor plates, third floor is dedicated to courts. It's judge's chambers plus courtroom, and it's about 3,000 square feet. So there's about 1,000 square foot difference in courts between the two options. Moving across in usable but unassigned space, offices, deliberation, meeting rooms, things like that. 2,600 square feet is in the renovation, and 3,200 square feet is in the new construction. Restrooms, last meeting you asked us to break the restrooms out, so 190 square feet of restrooms versus 530 square feet of restrooms in the new. I can't read that. What's that say? Oh, circulation, stairs, and walls. Those are things you don't ask for, but it's hard to live without. So there's 3,185 square feet of circulation, stairs, and walls versus 2,200. The reason for that is it's split up on extra floors in the renovation because you're dealing with the existing floor plates. So there's more dedicated to sort of unusable stuff up here, walls, stairs, corridors, versus down here. And then the gross area, they're pretty close in terms of gross area. 10,950 square feet on 4 levels, 11,875 square feet on 3 levels. When you compare the usable square footage to the non-usable, in other words, this stuff to that number, you get about 29% is unoccupied space. Down here you have 18% is unoccupied space. Some people would call this, a miscellaneous category too, of that unoccupied space. When you look at toilet fixtures, again, and these numbers between the two could change. We could add more toilets up here at the cost of some of this square footage and vice versa, but the plans you just looked at have 5 plumbing fixtures versus 11 plumbing fixtures. And that's without this 4th floor down here that could have another 4 to 6, so that would be 4 to 6 added to that number. And then back to the original, looking at this, what we were, one of the project goals was courtroom seating. We have 50 here and we have 100 here. Again, that needs some review by the judges, but those are rough numbers. And then the last section is pros and cons. For the renovation, it's an adaptive reuse of an existing building. That's a positive. It's primarily interior work, so it's less disruption, less temporary interruption of courthouse activities. There's no impact on the quantity of parking that's there today. We know that's a premium. It's partial historic preservation, even though we're making some interior modifications, but we are definitely preserving parts of the building. It's less demolition, and it's slightly less cost. The disadvantages to renovation are the misaligned floors, some limits on ADA accessibility. The rated egress is more difficult, in other words, a rated stair for an emergency. Courtroom seating is 50. Office space, or the unassigned occupied space, is less now and in the future. The restroom fixture count, and then the long-range flexibility, you're more limited because you're on smaller and more floor plates, so that's less flexible. The new construction, it's new construction, it's more energy efficient. ADA accessibility is easier, although not impossible in either one of them. Rated egress is achieved for the stair. The courtroom seating is 100. There's more office space now and in the future. The restrooms count is increased. The floors with the courthouse are aligned. There, again, no impact to the parking, and there's a little bit more long-range flexibility. The negatives to the new construction is it's more demolition, more temporary interruption of existing activities. It's less historic preservation, and it's more cost. And again, the numbers we have for costs they're about $200,000 apart, $1,842,000 to $2,100,000 versus $2,049,000 to $2,300,000. Obviously, if you move forward with either of these options, more information will become available, and that'll get more and more detailed. Questions?
Is that it? Okay. Chris, Jeff, questions?
Nope.
I don't think I have any.
It's a very thorough presentation. We appreciate the work and itemization that's involved in it. I presume that from your perspective, next steps would be the commission making a determination on whether to go forward on one option or the other, or neither. I guess there's a third option, right? To do it, not to do either. And then task you to do the more detailed work, engineering, start laying out with specificity with the stakeholders what needs to be involved.
Right.
Okay. Then,
Let me throw one question out there real quick, and I emailed you about that, but how did you address possibly reusing some of the stone, some of the cells? What options do we have there? If we do tear it down.
You're talking about option V, or the new construction?
To reuse some of the old stone, or?
Yeah, well, we haven't had that discussion in detail, but I would highly recommend that the quality of any new construction be of the same quality as the courthouse, both in durability and in aesthetics. I would assume you would direct us that that's a project requirement. We have looked at in the past of maintaining parts of the historic structure, be it some of the masonry, leaving it up or reapplying it to certain parts of the facade. I would suggest, if you move forward, to ask us for visuals of what that could look like. But there's certainly some masonry on the front of the sheriff's residence that could be incorporated into some of the design of the annex. But again, the key would be to make it look like it belongs next to the courthouse. A historic preservation expert would tell you that you shouldn't totally mimic the courthouse and try to trick people that it was built at the same time, but it should be complementary and the same quality.
Any other questions for Carrie? All right, hearing none, we will open the floor to.
I have a question. I didn't see demolition cost included with new construction. Was that added into that, or?
Yeah, it should be in there.
Can't see that far. Renovation. I don't see demolition on any of them.
That would be in the demolition.
There would be demolition, I presume, involved in either option, right, Carrie?
Yeah.
And you'd have to do interior demolition if you did the renovation. You would just do total demolition if you do.
Let's see. Oh, I
Well, I
can't.
see partial demolition on the old jail here, under third floor A. So there's a cost included in there.
Third.
But I didn't see that for the new.
Yeah, it's select demolition. You're right. It's select demolition on the renovation. In other words, tedious. I'd have to go back and check our numbers to see if that's in there. I'd see the square footage. I could do it really quick. If you give me a second, I could calculate it based on so much per square foot. Part of that too will depend on if we're saving part of the building for reuse.
For the new one, you're talking about the new.
Yeah, that would fall under selective demolition versus total.
Yes.
If we could just find it out later, that.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wondered, so the cost that you put on, allocated for the new, is it building back exactly in the same style, same quality, just like in this previous discussion? Or was it like some newer construction, usually like a new jail or something like that? What have those costs been?
See if I can answer this right. We have existing footings and foundations there, so we recommend lightening up the building with a steel frame instead of multi-white masonry block. Right now, the courthouse is built with very, very thick walls. They don't build that way anymore. And luckily, we can go to steel framing to lighten up the load to go vertically. I don't know that the average person would know that. You know, it would be a steel frame building, have all the same resistance to earthquake and tornado and things like that. But it would not be built the exact same as the courthouse. We simply don't have that technology anymore to do multi-white masonry construction. But in terms of the exterior, yes, I haven't been directed that way yet, but I would recommend it's the same quality masonry construction as what you see on the courthouse, definitely.
And has that been included in the cost?
Yes.
You haven't been directed that way, but, so that's not part of this cost?
Anytime we're dealing with an existing building, we assume the same level of quality of what's there with, today, obviously modern framing, but the same quality of what's there, unless the owner tells us to significantly cheapen the building, and we've not been told that, and we wouldn't recommend it.
Okay. Then, Terry, I believe you have the floor. If you wouldn't mind pulling up to a microphone so that folks can hear what you have to say outside of the room. Welcome again.
Thanks, Terry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Terry Rodman, and as a lifelong resident, I'd say voter and taxpayer of Cole County, I'm here today to once again ask the commission to oppose the demolition of the historic jail and sheriff's residence. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have started a petition throughout Jeff City and Cole County asking people to sign up, urging you as the Cole County Commission to preserve the historic jail and sheriff's residence. I will give each of you a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
I've included in there, we have where people have hand signed, and we also have our online petition names in there for you to look at. And then if you want to see those, you can always go to our change.org petition, just save the historic Cole County Jail and Sheriff's residence. We currently have approximately, I believe, 337 people that have signed up in a little over a month since I started the petition, supporting that we save the jail and go forward with that route rather than destroying the historic buildings. We know these buildings are important to Jefferson City, and I think people feel that and agree with that. I mean, our city's motto is feel the history. And so we have to have historic buildings around to feel that history. If they're gone forever, and we cannot bring those buildings back. I wanted to also point out that recently Michelle Brooks with the News Tribune wrote an article on the other jail and sheriff's residents around the state. I believe there are 10 that she mentioned, and most of those have been turned into museums. So I think, you know, those counties have recognized the fact that, you know, those buildings are important. And I think that maybe we should even look at that as another option. If you decide that this doesn't fit your needs for the courtroom, which I think it could, I think it could fit the needs, maybe not the wants, but the needs of the court. But if that's not an option for you, then we should really take a look at what other counties are doing. That's what I think anyway. I know, just to name a few, Jackson County Jail and Sheriff's House, they've restored that in 1959 and it's now a museum. Vernon County Jail and Sheriff's House in Nevada, Missouri is now the Bushwhacker Museum. Iron County Jail and Sheriff's House in Laclede and Rawls County are now museums. And then the Lynn County Jail and Sheriff's Residence was restored in 1971. So I think these communities have recognized the historic and economic value to having these buildings around and maintaining them. I will again, you know, point out that Jefferson City, we know we're losing our young people. They are moving away. We are losing state jobs. We are losing manufacturing jobs. And I really think that tourism is our future in Jefferson City. It's what's going to pick up some of the slack for that, for those jobs that have left. And, you know, if you look around our town, we see our downtown area, it's growing, it's expanding. You see a lot of new restaurants that are going in, new businesses that are going in downtown. And I think that people appreciate that historic nature that's there. And so that's why those areas are growing. And if we get rid of these buildings, we're losing that ability to add to that. I think there's other uses we could use this building for if it doesn't fit the needs that the courts want at this time. And we still have, you know, we have a jail across the street that's got unused area that we could look at for other other office space, other areas that we could use. You know, funding's an issue too. As a taxpayer, I am always going to go with the less expensive option. I think that most people agree they want to see, you know, they don't mind the cost of renovation, but they want to go with what's most useful for the taxpayer and what's most prudent for our money when we're spending that money. And I think that, you know, we've seen that adaptive reuse or renovation of those buildings will cost less than tearing them down. So you have the ability to retain a historic residence, keep that historic feel of Jefferson City, to go with our motto, feel the history, and it would cost less money. And so, you know, in conclusion, just as a voter, as a resident, you know, I know that 337 people may not seem like a large number to you, but I mean, I think when you have 10% voter turnout, as we saw 2 weeks ago, that can make a difference. And I think, you know, 337 people should have their voices heard. They obviously don't agree with tearing these buildings down. They would like to see them retained. And once they're gone, they're gone. You can't bring them back. You can't say 10 years down the road with a new commission possibly, you know, they can't say, oh, well, we wish we hadn't done that. And it's already done. And so I think we need to take the time to really study the issue, check with the community. I've been reading a lot of and researching with old newspaper articles, and I found one back from when the building was, the design structure was originally, you know, brought forth, and it was done by the judges because at that time they didn't have a Cole County Commission. But the first thing the article said was they wanted to build it next to the courthouse, but they would not do anything without first talking to the city council and to business leaders and to residents to make sure it's what they wanted as well. And I think that that's the way to go. Is, you know, we should listen to what people have to say. You know, people look at these buildings and they've grown up around them and they feel, as I do at least, passionately about them. We don't want to see them torn down. And I think that we have seen plans today that we could possibly work with to retain those structures.
All right. Thank you very much, Terry. Any questions for Terry?
On the other jails and sheriff's homes that you mentioned, Jackson County, Vernon County, Orange County, and et cetera, how many of those are attached to the courthouse that could have been expanded and, you know, a better use for it, for a courtroom? I was looking at this one on Jackson County Courthouse, and it's owned by the Jackson County Historical Society. They own and operate it. So I'd be curious who owns and operates all these other ones.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would be happy to look it up and email it to you. That would be.
I guess my point would be that we would be losing potential space, useful space for a need, which is the courtroom. And then we'd have additional costs to maintain it and operate it. So that's kind of what I'm looking at on that part of it. This one doesn't look like it's attached. It looks like it was a different building completely.
Well, and turning the buildings into a museum is just one idea. I mean, I would prefer to see that they become a usable courtroom and go that route. But there are multiple options for what we can do with the space, as we've seen other counties have done. I mean, I know that the fire department, just, you know, one idea would be if you wanted to do a museum. I know the fire department has talked about wanting to put a museum in Jefferson City. Would be something that we could use that.
I think they
building.
have one, don't they?
Mm-hmm. On Miller
Down
Street.
at the old
The
public
old fire.
works building.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they're wanting to build a new one. I just bought a $50 book for it, raising money for it. So I know that that's what they're looking at. But these are all options, and you know, a museum was just an idea I had because we have, I think, you know, every year, almost every fourth grader in the state that's on a bus and drives to Jeff City, and they make the tours. They start at the Capitol, they go to the Governor's Mansion, they go to the Supreme Court building, they go to the Highway Patrol, you know, so that would be an idea where you could draw an additional revenue. If you had a museum in there, that could be joined part of their tour, and it's very close. They could walk to it from the governor's mansion. So it's just an idea of ways. I think you guys have asked for ideas from people, and that's what I've tried to come up with.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That's why I was asking these questions on the tourism part. Jackson County's jail, 1859.
Actually had William Quantrill stayed in it.
Something, yeah.
I know I was reading a book about him
So-
and it talks about him being arrested in that jail.
Well, see, you know more than me.
Big difference between that and 1930s, in my opinion.
Well,
Big
that's
difference, in my
debatable.
opinion. In my opinion.
It's how you view your history. The 30s were the time of the Depression, and that's a very historical thing. I think that these buildings inspired hope in the people that had no jobs and were able to feed their families for working on them. So I think that applies and that relates to the historic nature of them. Okay.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Terry.
Terry.
Appreciate it. We will open the floor up to anyone else who would like to speak to the commission on this topic. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Morning, Steve.
Morning.
Morning. My name is Steve Wiley, President of the Historic City of Jefferson. And the first thing I'd like to do is to thank the Commission for this presentation this morning. I feel like this is something that's been missing, kind of laying out the architectural drawings and options before you. Thanks to Architects Alliance for doing that. It's something, that we all needed to see, and I'm glad that we had the chance to do that. And I hope we could do it again before you make a decision to open this up a little wider to the general public. And I've suggested to you that you have a night meeting to do that and a public hearing and allow more people into the process so that you can get greater feedback from the community and maybe some other new ideas that you haven't thought of. This is a good first step. It's difficult, to come here in the middle of the workday and to take off. I know I heard somebody remark before this meeting that, you expected more people. Well, we do have people here, some volunteers, members of our group. But, other than that, most of the people in this room are paid to be in this room. And I think that's partly because, the nature of your meetings being held on weekdays when people are working. So before you make a decision, I hope you would do this same kind of meeting again, but in a nighttime setting and allow greater public input. I was talking to Commissioner Helsher the other day, and he made a remark to me that I thought was very appropriate in this instance. He said, where there's a will, there's a way. And I think if you have the will to save these buildings and to repurpose them, that you can find a way to do that. Carrie has presented some plans that show how that can be done. So we think the people of the community have the will to save these buildings. They would like to see these adaptively reused. It can be done, and perhaps you can't get all the courtroom space that you want. Perhaps you cannot get all the seating that you want. The Rolling Stones said you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And I think you've got a plan before you that would at least do that, and we would certainly urge you to go that route.
Any questions for Steve? Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else like to come forward? Please come up to the table. And I think, Bill, you got your hands up first. And sit in front of the microphone if you don't mind.
My name is Bill Case. I am Vice Chair of the Jefferson City Historical Commission. But I'd also like to look around this room, and I'm probably one of the few that's as old as everybody here. I grew up in Jefferson City, and when I look around Jefferson City, I see the history, and it hits me right here because of walking around, driving, riding my bicycle. 1954, I'm on my bicycle when the prison riot was here. You know, I can tell you things. I've been in that sheriff home when I knew the sheriff there. These things are real dear to my heart, and I look at Jefferson City and I think that things that we have here we've got to save. Look at the buildings that we've torn down. Look at the things that we look at and we think, good night. Why didn't we try? Why didn't we save those beautiful buildings? And when I look at the sheriff in the jail, it's one of those historical sites that we want to save and look at our history. And someone has mentioned that, yes, we do feel the history, and I want everybody here, when they walk through this town, they do feel the history. And it's very important to us to think about that, especially our kids, our grandkids, and things, and people that visit our city. We want them to look at our history, and we have history all over the place. And the old jail is a part of our history, and I would like to see it preserved. Thank you.
Any questions for Bill? Thank you very much, Bill. Ma'am?
Thanks, Bill.
I'm Lois Hildebrand, and I'm on the board of the Historic City of Jefferson. And it's a little awkward as, you know, a taxpayer and as a citizen to come before this group. And then it appears to be, you know, we present some proposals and we're sort of guessing and come up with these that can be countered in numerous ways. But I'm thinking about this as you present the pros and cons of saving the old jail or building new. If in my house that I live in right now, if I'm going to renovate my house and I live in an older house, and I'm thinking about, do I want to renovate it or do I want to build a new one? I bring in an architect like Carrie, and he tells me all of the wants and everything, and the cost is going to be more. The new is always going to win out. But, you know, and so I think in any option that you present, you can argue that you'll always get more when you build new. But like Carrie said, you can't build it back the same way. And then the cost benefits and things like that are what any average taxpayer is going to consider when they decide whether or not they're going to renovate or whether or not they're going to go out and build new. And so I think that's a huge consideration when you take into consideration, you know, all of the other points that people have made about the value to this community and the importance of these buildings to the community, that maybe that outweighs what you're going to get if you actually build them. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks, Lois.
For Lois? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to come forward and speak? Jim?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm an outsider, but I've been here 22 years. And I just would appeal to you to not take this city's historic value for granted. I travel 45,000 miles a year in this state. I've been to about every courthouse there is. I've been to about every county there is. And I'm telling you, this is the capital city. This is the city of history. I live on Capitol Avenue. I have an apartment there. I walk this city a lot, and I just don't think you realize what kind of historic significance there is in this city. It should be a worldwide tourist destination. And it's almost getting there with just the prison and the publicity the prison has had over the last few years with it being the oldest prison west of Mississippi. We have a Capitol building over there that has the finest artwork in the entire nation inside it. And I call it the Capitol Mile, Capitol to the prison. And in between that Capitol Mile are these historic houses and these historic buildings. And right in the middle of that is the historic jail and sheriff's residence. And if you put a brick building or a tin building, I call it a lean-to, a side shed, onto this historic courthouse, it's just not going to match the historic significance of this city. So my point is, I just thought I'd speak up as an outsider, that to not take for granted what you have in this fine city. It is a beautiful city and it's so historically significant to this state and will continue to be. I'll bring up the point too, that St. Charles, our first capital, is still there. People still go see that historic street, and there are shops, and there are restaurants, and all this good stuff that are still drawing tourists and creating economic development and jobs today. So I think there's no reason why the capital city today, called Jefferson City, cannot do the same if they will appreciate their historic structures. With that, I close.
Any questions for Jim?
Thanks.
Thank
Jim.
you very much. Anyone else? Kathy, please come forward. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Bortner, and I'm a resident of Jefferson City in the county of Cole. I was contacted yesterday and asked to read a letter from Bill Hart, who is the liaison with Missouri Preservation. That is a statewide organization, and he talks a little bit about the organization in this letter, so I'll let him explain what they are about and read his comments. And I will give each of you a copy of this letter.
As opposed to reading it into the record, it might be easier if we just accept it into the record, if you'd like. Do you have an extra copy we can give to the clerk? That way it'll be part of the record.
Yeah, well, let her
Thank
read
you.
it anyway, so we know what it says.
Oh yeah, she's welcome to read it. I just want to make sure that it gets into the record.
Thank you. I'm glad to get it in the record. I'm sure that Bill would be glad that we did that. Dear members of the Cole County Commission, Missouri Preservation exists as our only statewide nonprofit preservation organization seeking to preserve place and community for future generations of Missourians through our education, recognition, and advocacy programs. Our chief advocacy program, Missouri's Most Endangered Historic Places, allows citizens from around the state to nominate historic places in peril to our yearly list of endangered properties. In 2010, Missouri citizens let us know that the old Cole County Jail was an important historic resource by nominating it to the list. We not only encourage you to save a part of Cole County history, but we encourage you to promote sustainable development by returning the old jail to a useful purpose. The building could be recycled for many uses, especially for the county court. Since it is already fitted for the retention of prisoners, it would serve well as a holding area for those awaiting trials on criminal charges. Installation of an elevator would enable the efficient transportation of the building's users to the different levels of the courthouse building and adjoining jail without the cost of losing an important historic resource and the high cost of new construction. Sincerely, Bill Hart, Field Representative, Missouri Preservation. And I would like to add a few of my own thoughts to Bill's comments. And I would like to say that last Sunday I turned on my radio and I found it refreshing to hear the Sunday morning roundtable. This is a weekly radio program in which two local personalities, Mark Ellinger and Bob Scribner, discuss local issues. And it was quite enjoyable last Sunday because there were people from the school administration who were on the program. I believe Dr. Brian Mitchell and Lorelei Schwartz and Bob Weber. And they were discussing the school's efforts to get input about what the public in this community wants for the future of education in our community. They were asked, it was brought up that the last school bond issue failed and that there were some people very vocal about opposition to that. And they were asked, did you include those people? Did you offer those people the opportunity to participate? And I believe that they said that they did, but the question was asked by the two people, or at least one of the people there, either Bob or Mark, did you include those folks? And my point for bringing this up is that the discussion on Sunday was about how good this is to include the community in these discussions and in the planning, and to get input from the community about what you want for the future of education in this community. And I urge you to do the same thing about your space needs, to get the input from the community about what you want to do in the future to provide for long-term needs. I recognize that you need a courtroom and you need it now, but I would urge you to do more thorough planning and to get the public more involved. On Sunday, there was discussion about how people are so angry with government now at all levels, and they are turning their back on government. You have a room full of people here today because of this issue who are interested in what you are doing, and I urge you to take advantage of that opportunity and to listen to what the people are saying and give them the opportunity to participate in the planning process. And finally, I would like to close by talking about the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is on that wall. It is that clock that is ticking to the next election in November. And I believe, I don't know if this is true, but I believe that's the elephant in the room. I believe that you are rushing to accomplish this before the next election. And I urge you to slow down and look more thoroughly at what the county needs, not just the courtroom needs, but the county as a whole. Last week at your meeting, you talked about the Carnegie Building and you looked at parking, and you talked about how if you end up letting go of that building, you're going to want to retain those parking spaces. That is not long-term planning. That is not looking out for whoever would take ownership of that building. To be talking about taking parking from a building that size, I recognize you need it. You absolutely need parking, but that is not long-term planning. And I urge you to do long-term planning as you think about what to do to meet your needs for the future. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak today. And if you have any questions?
I just got one, Kathy.
Yes.
Why do you think people are so angry with government?
I believe that well, I'll tell you why I'm angry at government. Because I don't think I'm heard. I don't think I'm heard. And I vote in every election. Every election. And I just don't think that the people I'm putting in office are listening to me.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, since you had this letter, it brings up the idea that we just started doing this. The letter even says in 2010, I went back and looked at my past emails about this. This started back in 2009, so I want to discount that argument completely. We started talking about this, and if it was that big of a deal back then, maybe there should have been this big push back then before we were really ready to do something. Now all of a sudden we're ready to move, and that's why people are mad at the government, because they're not getting crap done. So now we're finally wanting to get something done, and we're hitting all these bumps in the road. And personally, why are all the kids leaving? Because we're not moving into the future here in Jeff City. I don't even live in Jeff City. I enjoy living where I'm at, but some of them want more. They don't want to just have to have the old buildings. These lofts in downtown Jeff City, they're being held up because, Jeff City's got to preserve the past and stuff. You can't look into the future and have some new facade. It's got to blend in or be part of the future. So I don't know. I discount that argument about the time frame.
That's when it went on that list, Jeff. And actually, in 2010, we were here. I don't know if you were on the commission at that time.
I was.
Chris Wrigley, I think, was here. So, we have been vocal. When we knew that you were working on it, we were speaking up. We didn't know that you were working on it in the interim.
But, in 2009, we even have drawings from Kerry having different options of knocking it down back then. And so that's why I think that the big push should have started then to have some different ideas. Now, we want to stop it. We're going to stop in our tracks. We don't want to build this conference center. We're just going to stop it. I don't agree with that. I think we got to move on, and we got to make some kind of decision. And whether it's a popular one in here this morning, I guarantee it's not. We got to do something, and that's why they're mad at government, because too many people just let you get held up. So, and as far as doing night meetings and working on the drawings, I don't have a problem doing that either.
MoDOT does that a lot. In the city, other groups do night open house meetings, and you can hold it somewhere else if it's a problem holding it in this building. I've gone to them at IC Church. There's an area back there that's real good for that type of meeting. That is something that I'm glad you brought that up, because I did want to speak to that. And I know you talked about that a couple of minutes at a meeting last week. I didn't know that was going to be on the agenda, but you said that you had decided not to do it. I urge you to reconsider that decision and hold a meeting in the evening that people could attend and give you more input. You might hear from people who want you to tear it down.
I would like to point out,
plenty of them, believe me.
And I think it's important that when you talk about MoDOT public hearings, the Public Works Department, when we do projects, we do public hearings or public meetings. I'm not sure they're hearings technically. We do public meetings. And when you talk about the school district, those are very, very different from the presentations and the issues that are in front of us today. And I will tell that for two reasons. The reason MoDOT and Public Works has public meetings is because when they do construction, they have to get on other individuals' properties. So the recent one that I recall from MoDOT was the Lafayette. I think that's probably the one you were at. The purpose of those public meetings, and I think they may be required, don't hold me to that, I think they may be required, is because to do those projects, they actually have to go on other individuals' properties. They have to alter their property lines. They frequently have to take property. They certainly have to damage property for construction easements, etc. That's the same reason we have meetings. For example, we're doing the Highway 50 project, the old Highway 50 project out in Apache Flats. We had public meetings on that. That's because of the direct impact to property owners that actually occurs on their property. So, for example, a business in Apache Flats may have its driveway closed during construction. That's a direct impact to that business, to their actual property. That's why those entities, if they don't have to, effectively have to have those public meetings. The school district is very different than our situation. The school district, and I think they do a good job, they need to pass a bond issue. They need to increase funding to accomplish their project. They do not have money. They have not saved money up to do their project. It's with no disrespect to the school district, because they operate on very difficult situations, and what they have to deal with is very difficult. That's not the circumstance we have here. We are not proposing, nor would I think any of us, I don't want to speak for the other two guys, propose going out on a ballot issue to raise a tax or to indebt the county to build a courtroom. Candidly, I've had some people that have suggested, save the building, go build a new courthouse. I haven't heard anybody say, I'll vote for a $30 million bond issue, or I'll vote for a new sales tax for $30 million to fund a $30 million courthouse. I haven't heard that. Those are different, very different surroundings on public hearings. We're getting ready to embark on public hearings for countywide zoning. Very different. Countywide zoning, frankly, I think we may be required to have those public hearings. If we're not, countywide zoning affects individuals' personal property and the rights that they have on that property. It also is an election. It will go to the vote, I think in August we decided. Very, very different. This is something where for over 4 years we've been working on this project. The space needs for the courtrooms were in existence 4 years ago. We entertained options. I believe, don't put me on, I don't want to put you on the spot, Steve. I think you were here 4 years ago talking about this. And we talked about some of the needs, and we said we are willing to entertain other options that are cost effective and solve the problems. In 4 years, nobody's given us one.
I do want to point out that you do not have to do a public meeting on this, but we are asking you to do it even though you don't have to do it. So that we recognize.
And I understand it. I just want to make sure that, we understand that you're talking, when you talk about MoDOT's public meetings or the school districts, those are apples and oranges compared to the situation we have here. We have in my opinion, we have a facility need that we have saved money. And I would think as a taxpayer you'd be happy about that. We've saved money by cutting expenses to be able to address this facility need. We don't need to raise taxes. We don't need to go out on a bond issue. We can address the needs. I have had, and I wish Judge Beadham had been able to stay. I know he's got court. I believe this is a long-term, 20-plus year fix for the courts, which is something we need.
Yes.
And the courts agree with that this is a 20-year fix for the courts. This is the long-term plan for the courts. The other space issues that are involved with county government are space issues I don't disagree with you. We'll have to look at and address. But those are issues that we're not intending to go out and build a large new complex. Jackson County, Terry talks about the historic jail in Jackson County. They have beautiful court facilities. They spent $50, $60, $70 million building those court facilities. We can't do that. And I don't think anybody would suggest doing that. So, to the extent that as we move forward, if we want to have public evening meetings to discuss how we look at future space needs, I don't have any problem with having those meetings. We just need to make a decision and move forward. And 4 years of working over this issue is a long, long time. No one has come up with another option. Even in the, I want to call it accelerated course in time that we've come up with in the last several months, as this has come back out into to the public's view, nobody has come forward with another option. And I think that is instructive, in my opinion, as to the situation we find ourselves in. If there was an easy other solution, somebody would come up with it.
I think if you had a long-term planning committee that you got people from throughout the county involved in, I think that you would be getting more help with this. And it's just my opinion.
And most of the
long
long-term planning committees that are put together to pass taxes or bond issues. Let's just be honest about it. Because the easy solution is build a huge new complex, move all the county offices out of where they're at currently, move all the courts out of where they're at currently, build a large new complex, plan it out for a 50, 75-year time frame, and that's the, I don't think it's an ideal solution, but that's a solution. The price tag to that's beyond anybody's ability to control. The situation we have is the courts need to be co-located with the courts. They can't be 6 blocks away. They can't be a block away. They have to be co-located. And that puts us in a box. It's either a new courthouse or we work with the existing facility. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just respond to Commissioner Shepperly's question about why maybe the public seems to have lost confidence? And I think, back to my earlier point, I think it's a venue like this that instead of sitting down like Kathy's suggesting with a planning group where you can have some real input and real dialogue, that I believe that the public thinks that the decision is already made. And so then kind of venues like this become something of a charade where they present ideas and it's a guessing game back and forth of we present something and then it gets countered and then you go back and we have little to no, we have a lot of information, very, very knowledgeable people, but not the information that the commission has, and we don't know who's vying for other plans. But in this one, there is another option, and it's an economically feasible option. And so, we're not arguing about the needs that you see or anything like that. But I think that's why the public loses confidence. I just ask you, when do you remember that a group came like this to the commission with an issue, or to whether it's to the city or whatever, and their it was addressed, and they won, if you want to say that. It's too bad it becomes a win and lose, isn't it? But that they actually felt like they were heard. Can you remember a time that the
Couple
commission
months ago.
made changes based on?
And people here wanting their road paved, when we don't always get to answer their prayers either. And we have to tell them the answer they don't want to hear.
Oh, we're not saying that you don't have to do that. What we're saying, when you have a viable option, like there's.
We have had, I mean, I've been up here for 8 years, from the course of zoning, which was a citizen initiative brought forward, which has been moving forward. Planning goes along with that. We've done a number of street projects in all size and scope and scale, from very small curb and gutter projects that are based on neighborhoods up to much larger. There are, I think, more often than not, candidly, people that come to the commission that have suggestions on change, suggestions on needs are listened to, and frankly, I hate to use the win-loss. They win most of the time. Most of them come, with a specific need and a specific recommended solution. And, that's not to say they win all the time. There's some folks out on Landing Creek Road that, have been struggling with the situation out there. But I think that, candidly, we listen and we modify more than most people do. Now, if you need a list of all the examples, I mean, we can pull through the minutes and find lists of examples. But, this is one issue, and it's an issue that brings a different group of people than maybe paving a road out in the county may bring, or how to deal with our juvenile issues may bring. Every issue generates interest from different groups of people. And I think, we work very hard at addressing those concerns and hearing those, and we've developed very good cooperative relationships, for example, with the city of Jefferson, much in response to people saying, you guys need to work together. And we've worked hard at that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
My name is Jenny Smith, and I'm a taxpayer and a member of HCJ. One thing I'd like to respond to Mr. Hilscher on there is not a conflict between progress and historic preservation. This is the attitude in the 70s and the 60s in this town that led to massive destructions of our built architecture in this town. The old jail is part of our history. It's part of our identity. It gives us the individual feel of our city. It reflects the architectural heritage of our German builders in this town. You all have German names. It was your ancestors that built this great city, and that jailhouse is part of our identity. And I hate to see more of it stripped away. But I'd like to address something that hasn't been mentioned. I am a minimalist. I am a historic preservationist, but I'm also a minimalist. And I would like to see us do with what we have, rather than build more, expand more, get bigger and bigger. And to kind of echo what Kathy Borner said, there wasn't a lot of long-term strategic planning when that new jail was built over there, because where was the plans for a new courtroom when we did all that? I don't know why. So the public has a lot of questions, and there may be very good answers for these questions, but I haven't seen the answers, but I have the questions, and one of them is, what do we really need this new expanded courtroom space? Has every other option been explored, such as, for instance, long-term projections for the growth in crime? The nation as a whole is seeing a downward trend in crime. Now, I don't know about Cole County. Maybe we're different than the rest of the country. So, has that been factored in? Also, marijuana is being legalized all over the country. Is it going to be legalized here? And that would cause a drop in the need for courtroom time. Is there a trend toward teleconferencing? Could we do more of that where then we wouldn't need the courtroom space? These law days that cause a great glut of cases in the courtroom on a given day, and that's what we hear, this is the problem, there's just not enough room on law days. Why don't they stagger law days? I mean, that's what I would do if I had limited space. I'd try to expand it over more days. So there's a lot of questions that as a taxpayer I have, whether we really even need this courtroom. And I wonder, I'm looking at Carrie's drawing of the existing courtroom over there on the second floor, I believe. I wondered why there was no talk of expanding that courtroom into, I think it's the prosecutor's offices, expanding back in there and then moving those offices over into the old jail area, or renovated old jail. So I'm looking, as a taxpayer, maybe you have good answers to these questions, but I think it would be one step to communicating with the public and helping us swallow this pill that you're trying to ram down our throats. It would go down a lot easier if we fully understand all the ramifications.
And thank you very much for your comments. I will tell you that with respect to several of those questions, they have been extensively discussed in this room with the judges, public meetings. There's a copy of the letter from the judges dealing with some of those issues that you raised. With respect to the new jail, I was the only one on the commission at the time. The ballot issue went forward on the new jail. And I don't know if you recall what happened prior to that ballot issue. The original proposal was for a new jail and courthouse, and that failed 75-25. Citizens Commission was put together. They came back and said, no new courthouse. Build a jail, which is ultimately went forward and was a 75-25 positive vote on that. So that particular issue, I think the voters have spoken very clearly on, because that was there was a solution to build the big courthouse and solve all the problems, and that one failed. And many people can come up with many different reasons as why it failed, but it did. So that particular issue has been very heavily discussed. The courts they do stagger their law days, just for the record. I mean, I'm an attorney also. I go over there periodically. I'm not over there frequently, but they do stagger their law days. They stagger everything, and they're very cautious about staggering it because of the space concerns. So I do want to make sure you understood that several of those issues that you raised have been extensively discussed, not just in this courtroom, but across the community and in many, many hearings. Yes, sir.
I just want to address a couple things. One, you mentioned the Justice Center, which I think was the prior proposal.
It was.
And that was interesting to me because at that time, I remember there were going to be courtrooms. There was going to be a jail and there were going to be courtrooms.
Actually, it was going to be a courthouse.
They called it a Justice Center.
Yeah, but I mean, it was going to be a full court facility.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me that then that was okay, and now it's not okay.
No, actually, then it wasn't okay because the voters turned it down 75-25. A citizens committee was put together. And the Citizens Committee, which had, I don't know how many meetings, in fact,
I meant okay by the judges.
Edie was on it, said build a jail. I mean, it didn't even say Justice Center.
There's a okay for it to have a courtroom in the.
When? The first one?
That was discussed.
The first one I was not on the commission.
No.
We did vote to put the second one on the ballot,
Yeah,
the one that
but-
passed.
Yeah, and I'm
No, but the
talking
question is whether we can put a courtroom inside the jail, and that's what I think
And
Steve is going.
the judges have addressed that.
from a legal standpoint.
But Steve's saying the first time it was on the ballot, why wasn't that an issue?
They were separate
Right?
buildings. The jail was going to be over here. The courthouse was going to be effectively where the Baptist building was. They were going to be two separate buildings.
Okay.
So it was okay to do it that way because they were two separate buildings. They were not putting jail cell or courtrooms inside the jail. So that was a very, very different circumstance and not on point.
If I can just make one final
Mhm.
point. In the past several years, we've been very pleased that this community has embraced the idea of historic preservation. It really has. You talk about the downtown facades and going back to the old. That's the trend that this community has been taking. Adaptive reuse has been very successful. Carrie, I believe, was the architect for the Miller Performing Arts Center. wonderful adaptive reuse of an old building that now has a new purpose. I was in that facility recently and enjoyed a theater production there. Just yesterday, I was at what used to be called Warwick Village, now the Village Square. Another great example of adaptive reuse. They had to go in there and basically gut the cottages and make them new again. But that now still exists and for the benefit of the community. So adaptive reuse really works, and it's the trend. I mean, if you vote to tear these down, you're going against the trend in this community that I think is the right way to go. You know, we say as a community, as Bill has mentioned many times, that whole slogan, "You'll feel history," which was adopted 10 years ago. You know, and we're trying to take advantage of that history. We're trying to take advantage of the fact that people like to come here and see these old historic buildings. So, you know, adaptive reuse is a viable option. It's something that's going to cost less, and we really, really urge you to adopt that path.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, sorry.
I'm Edith Vogel, and as a caretaker of an older facility as the Cole County Courthouse, I would just like to say that I respectfully ask you gentlemen to consider the reuse of the structure as it is now. You can tear out everything that's inside, but you leave the facade as it is because it fits with the courthouse. I will have to agree with Commissioner Ellinger that the jail is just a rectangular structure. But I think today Kerry pointed out with his designs and his information that it can be retrofitted to be used as a courthouse, as the judges that are doing not you guys, but you know, in the olden days you were called judges when the courthouse was built.
Yes.
So I just respectfully ask you to consider the Architects Alliance proposal for reuse of your present structure. Gut everything out of the inside as much as you want, but leave the existing facade. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. Any questions for Edie? No?
Anybody wants to come to my older structure, you're always welcome to come up to 800 St. Mary's Boulevard.
Antebellum.
Bring a dust rag.
Antebellum,
Thanks,
isn't
sir.
it?
Yeah. Just bring a dust rag. Yep.
My name is Jerry Roslin, and I've got some extra copies if you would like that. Before I sit down, at the last meeting I was here, my two topics were practicality and aesthetics. In the renovation drawings, you got columns out there in the middle of the room, and this is about as good a prop as you can get. So I was sitting back there doing my Bob Uecker, watching everybody, testify, what have you here. I'm like, this is what you're going to be against with the renovation. You're going to have things like this in the middle of the room. Okay. With the sheriff's house, I noticed that there's offices, but then there's what's called working spaces. Those working spaces are in the hallway. That working spaces means your secretaries, your copiers, your file cabinets, what have you, are in the hallway. It's not an open floor space. So just wanted to point out a couple of things. I'm from the other side of the fence, I guess. And I've been in the position, and I've done a couple of things that have helped me make the decisions. I've been on boards, and kind of remember a couple of things that help me make decisions. And the first one that I would say is, does it better serve the residents of Cole County? Does it better serve it to having the old jail in its current configuration, or to tear down and rebuild the current codes, ADA, and up to date? One of the things that I noticed in the new plan, and the females in this room would like this, is it's double the size of restroom facilities, with the potential to triple if you added the fourth floor. Now, you don't get a lot of breaks between jury duty or things like that, and it's just kind of like between classes in school. You have to get in there and get back. It's the same way here. Does it better serve having a useful, efficient building designed to be courtrooms, offices, capable of being remodeled in the future, or a massive building that was designed to be a jail, not conducive to change, forced to be used as courtrooms or office spaces? I know that you have to remove the roof of the existing jail to allow for, to get the column out of the middle of the courtroom on that level, but also to hold the HVAC equipment and what have you there. So that's just part of it there. We're going to run into work orders and change orders if we go through a renovation, because they do not know exactly what's in that building. They don't know exactly what's under the building. They don't know what's in the walls and things like that. They can't foresee that. They don't have X-ray vision like Superman. We're going to run into change orders. That $200,000 difference, it won't be there very long. On a building of that structure and size and age, it won't take long to eat up that little bit of a gap. Does it better serve having a more efficient jury selection process due to a larger courtroom to hold the potential jurors, also incurring less cost to the county to reimburse jurors for their time? Right now, we can hold 64 potential jurors in a courtroom. We can get up to 100 or better if they add more seating. What that does is it lessens the number of days that the general public has to come in to be potential jurors. That lessens the amount of money that the county has to reimburse those potential jurors for in mileage and the stipend that they get each day. Does it better serve having a courtroom capable of holding the large trial? Judge Beadham mentioned it in the last meeting that the plaintiff couldn't even be present because of all the lawyers and all the other representatives that were there. His lawyer was there, but the plaintiff wasn't at that table. He wasn't down in the pit or the well. All of the law day docket. Right now, the docket, all those people in law day, they're out in the hallway. It'd be a better serve for them to be all in one large courtroom. Again, I mentioned the pit. The updated technology. Everybody's going to the smart boards and everything like that. We don't have the flip charts anymore. So the technology is changing every day. Even your law enforcement is changing the way that they present their reports to the public and in trial and different things like that. We can't keep up with technology because it's just getting farther away from us. If we can't get our wiring in the walls or things like that to keep up with that technology, then it's no use to us. Does it better serve to separate those charged work crimes separated from the general public? As it is, they use the same hallway. They cross each other. If we got a highly charged case or something like that, that's a potential conflict right there. Being able to separate those two, you're going to alleviate that conflict, and it's going to add to the safety of not just the people in a hallway, but also our public servants and officers. Does it better serve to continue to provide maintenance and utilities for the old jail building? There's an increased cost to repair or replace parts of the building that need to be historically correct and are hard to find or are disappearing craftsmanship. And Carrie mentioned that with the structure of the building and how you can't find people to build that way again. The building isn't designed to be energy efficient. It's just designed to be hard to escape from. That means that they don't want you digging through the walls or the floors or anything like that. It's a jail. The other thing that I do is when I think about this is I think for the greater good of residents of Cole County, which option best fills the needs for the majority of the residents of Cole County? They all can't be present in this room, and I appreciate the people that are here expressing their opinions. But you're charged with making decisions for all of the residents of Cole County. Does this fill the best need? Which option is the best, most practical use of tax dollars? And again, I think that's one of the questions with why we're kind of upset with our government is because, well, Missourians, they're stubborn and they want more for their buck, and they want to see it put towards something good. They want to see their dollar stretched as far as it will go. For the greater good, which option allows for an overall master plan to guide further expansion or renovation for the future? We're going to keep growing courtrooms. The fourth floor is an indication of that. 40 years from now, we're going to need more courtrooms. It's just a matter of fact because our population in this area is growing. But also the seat of government is here in Cole County. And we're going to have to do some trials one of these days for some government mishap that'll happen there that's going to come here. That is going to be a large, extensive trial. It's sad that burden is put on the people of Cole County, but that's why the seat of government's here is and we just have to deal with it. A master plan is something that you've got to have in any sort of facility management like this. When the floors don't line up, that means that if you add again in the future, you've got to put the ramps in, or you got to put in the more stairs or what have you to go down, to come back up. It's kind of like Capital Region, kind of like St. Mary's. You got to go different levels and everything like that. It's not very conducive, and you can get in trouble with the ADA. I would like to propose a possible compromise, because a lot of times in subjects like this, everybody's quick to point fingers, or they say, you can't do this, we want to do this, we want to do this, but nobody gives a solution. Nobody gives a compromise of any sorts. I would like to propose that during the demolition that we save the Sally Port doors for reuse and as much exterior stone as possible. Incorporate the original stone into your interior design of the courtroom or public hallway or public entryway, to include histories of the past jails and a small museum of sorts with articles and pictures from the era. To be honest, most people who see the building don't really have a clue what it is. They walk by it on the street, they look at it, they just think it's an old stone building. They just know it doesn't fit in. It doesn't look like the courthouse. They really don't know what it is, and all they know is that it was built there next to the courthouse sometime. That's just an old building. The people of our historical society, they have the knowledge, but I think they're dwindling. I don't think their numbers are as much as what they used to be, and I think, that's a shame that we have people with that knowledge, but the new people aren't getting that knowledge because the resources aren't there to get it that way. Why don't we preserve what we know and present it in a respecting way while still moving forward with a facility master plan? And then finally, I would offer the excess stone to the residents of Cole County for their use. We repurposed the stone from the state penitentiary wall. It's in front of the Supreme Court. When we came in and did some work in front of that state architect took some of that wall from the state pen and he put it there in front of that Supreme Court building. This is kind of similar concept to that. We could make some of the interior walls of the courtroom or hallway or something like that and do the same concept with that. I know a lot of people say that sometimes you need to hold on to a building and its use will come around, or this building, leave it in its configuration and repurpose it. But I think that's like an old pair of shoes that's in your closet that just doesn't fit. You leave them there, you get on every now and then, you put them on, they still don't fit. And you get that shoe stretcher on there, and you try to stretch it, and you try to stretch it, but it doesn't work. And they're just uncomfortable, it doesn't fit your needs, and finally you get rid of it. And I think that's where we're at now. I think the jail's an old pair of shoes, and it's not fitting our needs anymore. Our feet have grown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Jerry, Chris, Jeff?
Sir, would you once again tell us who you are
My name is Jerry Roslin.
and how you spell that?
R-O-S-S-L-A-N.
L-R-O-S-S-A-L. Okay, and who do you represent? You referred in all your remarks as we. So who is it that you represent?
I just
Or are you just using the term to describe you?
No, ma'am, I represent an ordinary feller in the county of Cole.
Who?
An ordinary feller in the county of Cole.
Okay, but you.
Okay, Edie, we don't need to have a grilling of the witness.
Well,
We've been very respectful to
I
everyone,
understand,
but
Mark,
now
but-
you're starting to take it beyond.
Well, that's what
Jerry,
I'm
are
trying
you
to
being
figure out.
paid or compensated by anybody to be
That's
here?
what I'm trying to get to.
No, I am not.
That would've
That's all
I
I'm
know.
asking. Because in his presentation, he sounded like that he was being.
He's
brought
addressed your concern.
Okay.
There's no need to
All
grill
right.
him over it.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jerry. Is there any other discussion or comment on this issue?
I did want to mention along those lines of,
I wanted to let you know there's a lot of places that leave shoes that they're recycled and reused.
Right.
But you got to take them out of your closet and move them somewhere else, right?
Really serve a good purpose.
but I mean, Jerry's comments aren't, we're not opposed to that, to having a
No.
museum area in there to show some of the past history of the jail, maybe using some of the stone.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Hey, if we can relocate the old sheriff's house, if you all can have some kind of idea to throw that at us, I'm not opposed to that at all. And I've tried to be very respectful. I've had a lot of outside conversations with people besides just here. These are just short meetings. We've had I don't know, you go to Lions Club, you're gonna get your ear bent there, you go grocery store. So, it's not just here, there's a lot of people that can't be here, and that's where we hear about it.
I
so.
got a text message this morning while I was drinking a cup of coffee. I don't even know who it was from because they didn't. They weren't in my contact list and they didn't say who they were.
I blocked my number.
Yes, Terry.
Just one, I'll make it quick. I was curious, who actually owns the building? I mean, we talk about it a lot,
The
but I don't
County
know
Commission.
who owns it.
County Commission owns all the buildings of the county.
Okay.
By
And so-
statute. By statute.
In turn, that would be, I guess, the people.
Yeah, I mean,
People, yes.
the county, the way the law says is the county, I don't know why they wrote it this way.
We
The county,
elect you to-
yeah, right.
to
The county commission
voice our-
owns the buildings, but obviously we're elected individuals, so the commission itself is not an entity so much as it is a representatives of the 78,000 plus or minus people that live in Cole County.
So I just would ask one thing. I mean, we've been able to find 337 people that on their own payments that signed this petition, and it's not easy to sign. You have to physically go log in, find it, and then put your information in and sign it. And I've been able to do that in a month. I mean, if we had 6 months and we tripled that number or quadrupled it, would it make a difference on your feelings then? I mean, I know you guys have been working on this issue, and I'm sorry I didn't get to it earlier. I honestly did not know about it. I'm a single mom. I go to school. I work full-time, and I just don't normally log on and watch the Cole County Commission meetings on Thursday mornings at 9.
That's understandable.
It's not been on my radar, so I'm
You have
sorry.
trouble sleeping some night, click on it.
So that was just my question. I would say to the gentleman who just spoke, one of the things is when he said which option best fits. If you went through his list and you applied all those which options best fits to the building, I work in the Capitol, you guys would be there with bulldozers tomorrow because none of those options fit that building. But we still use it, we recognize it's historical, and we are able to make it work. We make it work every day, and I still am proud to work there, and I think it's the most beautiful building in the country, if you ask me. But, there's different varying opinions to that. And thank you, I appreciate you guys letting me speak.
Thank you, Terry.
And taking the time to sit through it while I speak.
Thank you very much. Okay. Then I think we need to make a decision on how we're going to move forward. Based upon what Carrie has submitted, it seems there really are 3 options. We can move forward and have Carrie go into doing more complex, that's not the right term, more detailed work on one option or the other option, or we can agree just to shelve everything and close the book on this chapter and go forward. And since we operate by motion, I'd certainly entertain a motion by yourselves, or if you prefer, I'm happy to make a motion as to a resolution and we can vote on it.
Well, I mean, I've been quiet, and I respect everybody that's been here, and I wanted to make sure that I listened to everybody, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm shoving something down their throat, because that is not my intention, and that's not how I'm going to vote today. But Mark said that there's basically 3 options, so we've got 2 options before us from Carrie here today, and then the third option is to do nothing. Well, doing nothing is allowing these buildings to deteriorate and fall down, and we can't do nothing. That's just not an option. Maybe we don't decide anything today, but to do nothing, we still have to maintain the roofs, we still have to seal the exterior, we still have to maintain all these things because we've spent money on a sally port in the basement. And we can't allow water to come through that building and deteriorate it further. So I see some historic value in the building itself, but and I've told this to you, Steve, once you're inside it and the thing's gutted, that to me is where the history's at. I mean, if the shell's the same and you come through the courthouse, you don't even know that you're in a different building. I mean, it's really the same. So, you know, I look at this as trying to achieve one of our goals, which was getting out of the Carnegie building. And that building is going to cost the county taxpayers a lot of money to rehab. It needs a roof. It needs lots of things. And we're trying to consolidate some space. We're trying to make county government more efficient. And so with that in mind, the Carnegie building, we need to sell it or we need to get rid of it. Somebody had mentioned parking. We have talked about that forever. Parking is going to be a problem in downtown forever. It's a parking for all the storefronts on High Street. There's not adequate parking. People want to park right in front of the shop that they're going to go shop in. It's not going to happen. I mean, we've tried to address it, but people are just going to have to walk. So, like I said, I respect everybody's input, and I've tried to be open and listen to it. And at the end of the day, I've got to make a decision on what's best for all the residents of Cole County and what's the best use of our tax dollars. So, Jeff, do you got anything to say?
No, we looked at the other option to adaptive reuse. Very open-minded about it. Carrie played with it, and I was hopeful that we'd be able to work with something on that and be able to use the interior. But and the judge has already left. Otherwise, he'd tell you they can't use that. There's no sense. I think he told you that. There's no sense doing it that way. You're not gaining anything by it. So the best use for the tax money is going to be to knock it down, have a more flexible floor plan, and it's actually going to cost less in the long run, because price per foot of usable space is going to be less. So I think we need to move and do something. We're not going to tear it down tomorrow by no means, but I think we need to at least direct Carrie to start getting some final drawings, some final plans together, and to move on. And okay, the architects. So I don't know if we need that as a motion or if we just direct him to do it.
I think we need to make a motion to approve entering into a contract with Kerry to proceed forward on that.
Because if he comes back and says it's going to be $3 million to do it,
Yeah, I mean,
then
we'll have to stop
I'm gonna,
and back up.
Yeah, that's going to change the whole thing. Right now, we're working with the budget there, 2.0 or wherever it was at. So,
I mean, we've talked. We've got no more than $2.5 million. And that's just we can't go beyond that. That's the ceiling. So, I'd entertain a motion to approve a contract with Architects Alliance to do more detailed design work, cost estimation, et cetera, on the option to do the demolition and rebuild.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Call roll, please, Michelle.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
By roll call vote, contract Architects Alliance approved. We'll move forward on that. We will continue to have all our meetings in open public session on this issue as this design work goes forward. And you all are always welcome to attend. And
I'll
again,
host an evening meeting to
we
show
can have
the
an evening.
drawings.
We can
I'm
schedule an
fine
evening
with
meeting to
that,
have those
too.
drawings.
If that's going to change anything, I don't know if that was what your major concern was, just the drawings.
Can you show the drawings of the renovation also, or is that not going to be, and can we get copies of that version?
These copies will be publicly available. We'll put them on the drives. You have these electronically, Carrie. If you'll send them over, we'll put them on the website so anybody can see all of these. And as far as more detailed design work, that's only on the one project. Okay, next item on the agenda is accounts payable review. I'd entertain a motion to approve same.
So moved.
Do I have one in there? You sure? Okay.
I'll
Chris,
second it. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstain.
Those opposed, let the record reflect Jeff abstains. Care Leave Committee recommendation, Larry? Too busy chatting over there.
John Ruth when we got ready for him at the end, so what, how much time
Tell them 11:30.
1:30.
Okay, go.
The Care Leave Committee met on April the 8th and reviewed a request for care leave hours, and we are asking the commission to approve 132 hours for a county employee that has requested. We've reviewed all the documents and feel that it's appropriate to allow those hours.
All right, entertain a motion to so approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those fair say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Carrie. Thanks for your work. We'll
Thanks,
get the
Carrie.
contract over to you shortly. First reading budget adjustment number 5.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Again, it's first reading, there's no action today. This is for $988.01 for the law enforcement fund. It's due to a grant and a refund of some AT&T.
All right, we'll pend it for 10 days. Take it up then. First reading budget adjustment number 6.
Again, no action, it's $4,499. It's for a refund premium on insurance changes that we made to our policy.
Okay, 10 days, pend it. Williams Keepers engagement letter for audit.
Mark, I know you had some questions.
I don't have them resolved yet. I'm not going to sign it.
Did you get the email from her?
I did. It doesn't answer my questions.
Did you respond back to Heidi?
No, she sent me definitions that don't relate to what the issue is. We are being asked, my concern, guys, is we're being asked to represent in the letter that we, i.e. the three of us, have ensured that every elected official complies with every law. I can't tell you to do anything, Marvin. No offense intended. I think you do. I think you do comply with all the laws, as far as I know. But I can't sign that letter.
Well, it says management is responsible.
I cannot be responsible for what Marvin does. I don't mean to pick on you, Marvin. Sorry.
I know I'm sitting here, but
If Larry Vincent was here, he'd be being picked
picked
on.
on too. But no, you cannot.
I can't
They
do
have-
that.
They have no right to tell us what we can do in our offices.
So do you want me to?
So she
ask
needs
them to reword
she
it?
needs to word it to say the county commission, whatever. We represent that for all the entities that are directly reportable to us, but that we cannot do that for any independent elected official. And I'm fine with that. I can't sign a letter saying something we don't have control over. You guys can.
I'm fine
I mean,
with
I
that,
guess,
too. I think we talked about that before, I thought.
I mean, I guess we could get them to sign some type of a letter to us that would we could attach.
That's true, Marvin. You can sign a letter saying that you've done everything.
Don't bring it too soon.
Well, and actually Jeff's point or Chris's point's a valid option. If they have to have a representation from everybody that covers everybody, then we have to get one for everybody. And I'm fine with that.
And they had made that before.
Okay.
Just you before a second, so.
Discussion of Business 50 project and revision prior to change order.
I got a list of things to discuss. The first is the revised change order, the one that was approved March 5th by the commission. There was one thing that was incorrect in that, and so.
Is this a substantive change, or is this just
We had a traffic signal change of about, I don't have it in front of me, a couple $1,000 increase. Since then, we had a change to the sanitary sewer that the city's contributed for in the amount of $4,700. So that's an increase as well. The city's paid for all that. We also added galvanizing on the handrail instead of painted per the manufacturer recommendation that we do.
so? What's the net effect on the change order?
It's about $10,000 total.
The majority of which is being paid by the city, correct?
About half of it.
Okay.
The city, yes.
I entertain a motion to approve change order number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Chris,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
A roll call vote. Change order number 1's approved.
Thank
Okay.
you.
That was the easy part.
That was easy. I want to give a project status update. I'll make it quick. Things are actually progressing pretty much on schedule. We're expecting to lay asphalt later this week, depending on their progress, or early next week on the westbound lane. And after we do that, we will switch traffic over immediately to that lane and the center lane and start tearing out the southbound lane. And this is all in phase 1 of the project, which goes from Central Drive down to approximately Enterprise Drive. Based on the schedule they submitted, we're within a couple of days, which is encouraging based on the weather we've had and just all things considered. I think the project's going fairly well. Haven't really had any complaints from anybody about anything, so
I've heard nothing but positive things except for the Wow, that's a really big project.
Yeah.
Which I've gotten 2 or 3 times from people.
And it is, and I think, to our credit, not to brag, but I think we made a valiant effort to get information out to people ahead of time and let them know we've used the Apache Flats Business Association in a good way to help get information out. So, you got any questions about the project status and all that? Okay, moving on. In the packet that I sent you, there was I talked to a man that owns property off of the Ravenwood Drive subdivision. I think he had talked to Chris initially, and Chris sent him my way. Went out and looked at it. He's got some concerns about his property, flooding and whatnot with the project that we're doing. I told him, the water, it will be an increase in discharge, but comparatively to what he's got now, you won't really see any measurable difference. However, he did ask, in the past, the county had cleaned out some gravel bar issue there in Field Bridge on Ravenwood Drive. And this kind of actually relates a little bit to cleaning out the channel in front of the culvert underneath Business 50 West. I told him I'd talk to you all and see if there'd be any interest in doing something. I think this is kind of independent of the project, but since it's kind of going on at the same time, it's something that I wanted to see if you all had an opinion on whether, I think, whether we do it with our own crews or we have the contractor do it, we would want to clean out the channel, at least in front of the box culvert under Business 50 West. That kind of would extend up to the Ravenwood Drive and cleaning out that. Is there any interest from the commission to entertain that idea? It would be off of right of way. He said years ago the county did do it, but hadn't within the past 10 years. He's concerned about that. Technically it's not, it wouldn't be a county responsibility to do that. However, while we're in there doing some work on the creek affecting our box culvert, we could possibly do that at the same time. And the two they're separate, but they kind of go together. So it doesn't, you don't have to decide today. I wouldn't recommend doing anything until the end of the project, or maybe even next year anyway. It's not something that has to be done now, but it's something that he asked that I talked to you all about.
We've had issues with brush and stuff in these creeks and stuff like that. And so any county bridge, I assume, that we clean out around those after a storm or whatever? If
we do, the ones that, of course, that get brush, it's on the list. They go out and check them and clean them every time we get a big rain, especially anything on Morrill River or the south or north Morrill Creek.
But the Morrill is kind of a different animal than these drainage ditches, because there's not a whole lot of, even the flooding along the Morrill, a low water bridge or Lesh Bridge or whatever. I mean, that stuff does flow on downriver usually, or you push it off the other side of the bridge or something. So anyway, this is more of a drainage ditch. It's still feeding into Binder Lake, but at the same time, it's I don't know, Larry. We worked on that on some other issues though too. It's kind of
the time that I think he's talking about is when there was a flash flooding, and there is a lot of water that comes down that, and there was some brush that got in front of their little box or bridge, and it was backing water up towards Business 50, and we went in and moved the brush. But there is a significant amount of water there. But yeah, we have those type of things everywhere. And we don't
I'd like to see us, and we've talked already, I'd like to see us visit this, as far as a drainage ditch or whatnot, on who's responsible for keeping that stuff clean. And I realize some of that stuff's silting in and depositing in those places, but, all trees and all kinds of things. And I'm sure people are dumping stuff in there. It's so I think before I'm okay with cleaning out what we've cleaned out in the past, but it sounds like it's more than that here. And
it's clearly off of our right of way and outside of any easement.
But I think we just need to kind of address those kind of drainage issues and who's responsible for keeping those ditches clean before we get too far into this.
Well, I think at a minimum, we'll clean out our box culvert.
Right.
We can do that anyway. But yeah, we can have an internal discussion on whether that would be something that we recommend doing. I'm not here to recommend we do it or not. I just wanted to
Sure.
mention it to y'all and just maybe get some discussion going over the next course of the rest of the year.
I don't think it's bad to start talking about it now before.
Agreed.
We get to that. We definitely got to watch. It's going to set precedent about what people are going to start asking us to do, what we're going to have to do. And if it's affecting hours
Westview
downstream, then
Mm-hmm.
It's only 2 words I have to say.
Yeah.
He does have some erosion issues because of what's depositing at the bridge. But it goes back to, it's not really a county responsibility. So
I'm willing to work with him on it, while we're in there doing stuff, but I don't see us footing the bill for it all.
But we have to keep our culvert clean and open. The water's
Yeah.
got to be able to flow
So-
through.
that's our responsibility.
Right.
Is the box. So,
Okay.
We'll just discuss that internally and maybe talk to you at a later date about it.
Okay.
So, the next item is, we had a request from one of the property owners on Business 50. It's the AAA mailing service property. The original design, when you do a curb and gutter project, sometimes you get rid of the ditches, sometimes you don't. It just kind of depends on the drainage and how everything. And he asked, we had a ditch designed in front of the property there. He asked that we look at putting that enclosed. And I had Paul do some calcs on it to see what it would cost if we did. The approximate cost, about $27,000, give or take. This would be just an increase of bid items that we already have in the contract. We are already going to do the driveway. We're going to put in a trench drain. Looking at this a little further after he inquired about it, Paul looked at it and decided that we probably should put a trench drain there anyway in the driveway. So we're going to do that anyway. We have trench drains on other driveways. So we're going to have that. But the net increase to do this additional stormwater work will be about $27,000. We'd have to go back and kind of relook at the numbers and just adjust the bid items. But it's kind of a judgment call either way. I mean, we can go either way. It'll function okay with the ditch. The problem is, one issue we discussed this morning, we're having some issues with utilities. As much as we tried to locate everything in there, there's still problems with getting them moved. With the ditch, the location of the ditch, we could have issues with the water line. But anyway, make a long story short, we got about $27,000 to do all this, and it actually corrects not their property, but also the 2 properties on Enterprise Drive, and gets that enclosed as well. So, I don't know if we need to make I wouldn't propose it as a change order that you sign now. It would just be an overrun of quantity of an already established bid price that we have. I just want.
So it's your recommendation we do that? That's better for the long-term project?
I think so. You get rid of the ditch issue, the stormwater containing it. It is a pretty good hillside. There's a whole lot of water that comes down there. An added benefit, by doing this, you get the water draining into the pipe instead of in the ditch, collects in the ditch. Ultimately, you have water, could get underneath your subgrade where we're having stability issues anyway, which is the next topic to discuss. So I'd recommend that we go ahead and add this. The property owners, it'd be a benefit to them to do it. And like I said, just be an increase of bid items that we already have in the contract. So I wouldn't do a change order. I would do a final closeout change order with the final quantities. I wouldn't necessarily need to get this approved unless you want me to bring it to you.
So what's a not to exceed price on it? Do you have any?
We don't really have a not to exceed because it's already bid prices that we have.
But you got to have some kind of idea where it's going to be, right?
If we do go forward with it, Paul can actually come up with actual quantities for this ad. We know the exact amount.
So we're looking at $20,000 or $200,000 or $2 million?
$27,000.
Okay. Did you say that already?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I saw something shiny, I guess.
So
27. Okay.
So there were ditches behind the sidewalk. Is that how that was?
And the reasoning for that is that if you can envision it, everything from the north of Business 50 all drains towards the highway. without putting ditches behind the curb, then you basically turn business 50 into a giant flat bottom ditch. You know, if you were trying to make everything drain into the street, and then you wind up increasing your inlets and everything else.
So then we have, stormwater on that side, and then we have culverts too, or
Well, but basically, we'll be, instead of having an open ditch, we'll have drop inlets and enclosed pipes behind the curb.
that tie into the
That'll pick up all the
stormwater.
stuff to the north, and then it'll discharge to where the larger crossroad pipes are already at.
There's just so much water that we have to get it. We can't just let it sheet drain across the sidewalk onto the road. In some cases, you can do that, and we have those along the whole project. There's so much concentrated water coming down between the buildings.
I guess my question is AAA mailing doesn't have a paved lot, it's gravel or something?
They do
Is
have
that,
a paved lot.
do they have a curb?
They have a curb. So all the AAA's drainage all comes into their entrance, which is why we're adding the trench drain there to pick up everything instead of having a sheet flow onto the road.
Okay.
Especially in that location, the road's actually super elevated, so all the drainage goes to the south side of the highway. So without the trench drain, the drainage from AAA mailing, it'll actually go all the way across the highway to the south side of the road. And
So a
by the time you
trench
have-
drain's similar to a drop inlet or something, yeah.
It's a drop inlet over the entire width of an entrance.
Okay. So it's just like a top inlet almost.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, next.
We'll move forward with that. The last item is the subgrade stabilization issues that we've been having on the project. I included in the packet just some rough numbers. The way it stands now, we'll have used the GeoGrid option through all of the first section of phase one. We're having a lot of issues with the soil not being good enough with the option that was in the plans. We're having to dig out some spots. It's hurting production. These little isolated dig out areas are going to cost quite a bit to do. So I threw together some numbers. Got a price from the contractor to change out this to 18 inches of shot rock, and some numbers I threw on there. I told the contractor, I said, let's just go ahead and use the GeoGrid in the first phase, which is kind of the area that's a little bit higher. Phase 2 and 3 are down in the bottom area where I think we're going to have the bigger issues. And by changing this out and going with shot rock, it would be just ballpark roughly about $220,000 additional. We've talked to Paul and Mike about this and think that the best thing at this point is to get a geotech engineer to come in and do just a little more analysis of this subgrade, just to see if this is the best option to go with. The problem.
I agree. I mean, I think we should get more detail before we make a
Before we
decision.
make a decision,
You
yeah.
know.
We've got a little time to work with.
Then we can come back and have a more informed discussion.
So that's what we're gonna do,
Okay.
have them come look at it and see. And so by the time we start on phase 2, we'll know exactly what we need to do and not get into phase 2 and then have to back up and slow things down. So
Makes sense to
so
me.
that's what we plan on doing.
I
Maybe
thought we
within a
did
couple of
something
weeks we'll
like
have
that.
Something for you.
We didn't do something like that before the whole project, so we didn't run into the same thing we ran into on McCarty.
Well, basically, at the beginning of the project, we had a geotechnical report done, and it was based on, I think we did about 10 or 12 borings down the entire length of the highway, which those are just kind of, spot capture. This is what's going on in this location. And, the geotech report basically said that there's soft subgrades that are in the area, and, you really aren't going to know what you have until you get into it.
So really, it wasn't worth doing. We could have.
We kind of wasted our time doing that.
I think if we hadn't done that in the first place, we wouldn't know what we were getting into at all. We've got quite a bit of money put into the project for subgrade stabilization to begin with. Had we not had the geotech report, we would have had a 4-inch rock base with nothing underneath of it, and that's.
Oh no, we would all know we all knew there were problems down there.
What we initially would have thought about doing is just shot rock the whole thing, and that would have been a huge cost. By doing this and having this alternative, in the end, I think we are saving money. It's just not going to save as much as what we intended initially. So, as big as an investment we're putting in the project, we're going to look at it a little bit closer, make sure we're doing the right thing here.
Okay.
Where's that gonna put us with the overall project cost? That's still gonna be within a contingency, where,
Even adding the stormwater stuff we just talked about and adding this, we're still about 90,000 under our contingency amount.
so cross our fingers and hope nothing else comes up, or we have savings somewhere?
We have, but I'm
Sorry.
said that out
I didn't mean to
loud.
laugh at you.
We have a contingency. in the
I don't mind laughing at him. He laughs at
What,
me, I laugh at him.
What do you think this geotechnical? I mean, is he going to have to look at a spot by spot basis, or I mean,
And I think that's really what the goal, in order to help the contractor increase the production and make sure that the thing gets done before the end of the year.
Mhm.
You know, right now they're having to basically go in and evaluate each area as they start uncovering it. And, you know, the goal is to be able to have a solution that will work where the contractor doesn't have to think about every time he sticks
Okay.
his backhoe in the ground. So they've got a solution that we're highly confident will work for the entire project. So, you know, the 18 inches of shot rock that Derek's got his estimate based on, that's the standard contractor. That's what it takes to stabilize a subgrade. My concern is that once you start getting into the lower part of the bottoms, that 18 inches doesn't work, and then all of a sudden it becomes 3 feet.
Right.
And then things go downhill really fast. So my goal through all of this is being able to have a solution, an engineered solution versus a contractor guessed solution that we have high confidence will work, that we can come and tell you and say, okay, this is going to be a $200,000 change, and this is what we believe is the final answer, and not have to come back again with another $200,000 change when 18 inches becomes 3 feet.
so I mean, we're talking basically excavate, maybe proof roll, see what the subgrade's like, and then start digging it out, or some kind of.
And that's basically what we're doing now.
Right.
But like I said, we'd like to get to the point where we're not having to proof roll, that, you know, we know what we're doing going in when we uncover it. And as far as, you know, what we're doing right now, I don't see a big cost in this. It's mostly going to be reviewing the report that was done, that gave some general recommendations in geotechnical reports. You know, because they are based on spot locations, they always say, you know, further work may be done during construction when you know, large areas of the subgrade get uncovered. So I don't see this consultation with the geotechnical to be a big cost. More of firming up what's already been done and just slightly more detail onto it. So.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll be able to have something in the next week to 2 weeks.
And having worked on them shoulders before in the past, it could go from 18 inches to 3 feet, 3 foot.
Oh, I'm sure. Probably an old creek bed.
It is an old creek bed.
I think that's why I'm frustrated, because I thought we went through all this extra work to know what we were getting into beforehand, so.
I agree.
I'm just frustrated with it.
And we
but
knew,
I'm
it's kind of like you said, Larry, you know, everybody knew we had big issues out there.
Yeah, I think we know, but I think.
And I'm surprised that the original geotech work that was done didn't take into account that we knew we had big issues out there, and we didn't do more testing, because I have a real concern on where the budget's going to end up at, because we're going to, I think, very quickly look at just the subgrade stabilization, busting the entire contingency, and us being way over budget on this project. When, you know, the dollars would be what the dollars would be, we would have to do it anyway, but it would have been a lot better to have known that number in advance, and I think maybe. All right. Let us know what they say. That's all you can do.
Yeah, my concern's not 3 feet; it's 6 or 8 feet.
Or piers, having to drill down piers, or.
That could fall back on the GeoGrid option is the better option. We just need to add some more benchmark to it. So that's we're going to
All
get
right.
further into it, just make the right decision.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you all. County Parks Facility Rental Policy. Sorry, Marvin, you're like at the end of this though. This is what happens when you ask late to get on the agenda.
Yeah, we got it.
I told her it would take me a minute.
You guys have a copy of the letter?
Yeah,
I
it's
got
all
it right
right.
here. It's on our scans.
Jill, did you look it
I
over?
have given it to Jill, and she has looked at it. Gave her blessing.
Thanks, Jeff. You locked it for editing. I can't even. All I can do is read it now.
I did.
That's what it says. I don't have any problem with it. Do you need
Yeah.
a motion to approve it?
Please.
So entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? We're on a policy. Roll call vote, please.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff?
Our roll call vote's approved. Thanks, Larry. Good job on that.
The only problem I see with it, and it's kind of back to long-range planning, if we start getting a lot of these on the same days and it's on the weekend, we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna staff that, so that may be something we're gonna be talking
Staff it.
about later. We're having.
Somebody pick up trash and stuff like that.
Picking up trash and all that.
You
Although they
add
should
that
do
roll
that
into the
themselves.
cost of it? I was gonna say.
They need to pick it up.
Yeah, but
And if it gets
you
to
know
be
how that
more,
works.
If we gotta put a $200 damage cleanup deposit on it.
We'd have to change our policy then.
Well, we haven't even advertised this yet, we've already gotten 4 requests to reserve it, so.
Okay, well, good. Thanks, Larry, using it. Marvin,
County Clerk Inspection Precinct Report.
does that money go to Parks and Rec?
Yes.
It won't take us long. We have to do this once a year, as you know.
We need to reflect that it's been accepted.
Yes, it goes in. I've gave her a copy.
I mean, do we need to vote to accept
No.
it? Okay.
It
I just want to make
needs
sure.
be
Go
brought
ahead.
to your attention of what's going on. The only changes that we're going to make at this time is that we're going to be closing City Hall, Precinct Ward 1, Precinct 1, and we're going to move to Ward 1, Precinct 2, to Calvary Baptist Church located at Huff Park. And the reason we're doing that, because in the last 3 elections that we've had at City Hall, we've had approximately 38 votes. 10 the first time, and I think 4 the last time, and 18 the other day. So that's the reason we're closing that. And then with the American Legion Hall out at Centertown, we did put in, they requested $11,607 for grant money for ADA. We did put in a new pad for them to parking, and also a new ADA ramp into their doors. So we did spend that. So we
Super.
have, that's basically kind of all what we've done. All our other polling places are ADA.
Good job, Marvin.
Good.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Marvin.
We'll let the record reflect the report in the minutes. So.
Here.
All right. We've got next. That's everything on the agenda except for our closed session.
I have some old business, if I could.
Quickly.
One is the contract for the public administrator's work.
Oh yeah, we finally have the contract. We need to vote to approve it. It's old business. Entertain motion to approve the contract.
What is this one?
This is with GBH Builders. You guys voted to move
Oh,
it forward. I
okay.
still think we have a
Oh.
contract.
Okay, yes.
So entertain motion to approve the contract.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Call a roll.
Chris?
Yes.
Yes.
No. No. I
voted
voted against it the first time. I'm not gonna. So one of you guys, one of you guys can sign it.
Well,
However we do that.
I don't know.
I can't.
Or both of you.
Or yeah, both of you sign it. I'll let
Don't matter.
Debbie. You can just type in signature lines and do it.
Just
What's the
have
other? Oh, this is the letter we talked about with that grant.
Chris
for-
can sign it, or I can sign it. Don't
I think
matter.
you should both sign it
That's fine.
since I'm not.
We got to vote.
This is that
We got
letter.
Some kind of signature altar.
Oh,
Here, I
for,
will just sign it, and y'all
Christie's
write our names
support
next
that
to it.
grant.
Okay.
And I'll print yours on.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back and vote to go into closed session.
Before you leave today, I need to say a couple things.
Just
I
Mark.
gotta go to the bathroom.
Mark?
Is this still on? I'm going to the restroom.
Live interview at noon. It's over 30 minutes away.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you, sweet. If you could just be out in the hallway at 11:55.
It's gonna be live.